So here we are doing another fabulous podcast. Thank you for downloading us. And I'm in my traditional spare room. Mark is in a luxurious, swanky studio and looking particularly fabulous in that green jacket.
Barracuda G9. It's not a green jacket. It's Harrington. You know that.
But it is obviously a green jacket. It just has a sub.
It's not a green jacket. It's a Barracuda. I'm in Sony. I'm in the Sony HQ.
Is that the same as Sony HQ?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think
no, they're different companies.
Everyone there says Sony.
But I know I'm in Sony. You are back. You are in Showbiz North London in your house. But I am actually in the Mission Control because, and thanks for mentioning it, Simon. Today is publication day of my book. I was about 10 years.
I was about
10
to
years at the making.
Go on. But you jumped in so quickly that I wasn't able to. Because I was on an online book purchasing site.
Were you?
Trying to get a copy of your book because no one had sent one to me. Plus also the book by the good lady, Professor Her Indoors. I wanted a copy of both of them. Oh. So I found your book at a reasonable price, which is on its way to me, but I have spent money buying it. Just Thank like you. To say I didn't get a free copy.
Thank you for your service.
Still not quite sure why I didn't get a free copy, but anyway. The price quoted for the good lady, Professor Her Indoors, was £170.
That's for the hardback.
Struck me as quite a lot for a hardback.
Yes, I know.
Anyway,
but you have to understand, it's an academic publisher, so it's Rutgers Press. So those hardbacks go to libraries. Normal people don't buy the hardback editions. Normal people buy the paperback edition.
I went back today, and I can buy Steven Spielberg's Children for £24.
There you go.
So that seems okay. But Contemporary American Cinema, another book by the good lady Professor Her Indoors, £274. Now, even with the academic markup, that just strikes me as, I don't know, quite a lot. Anyway, when my paid for copies of your books arrive, I will let you know.
Yeah, of Mark Kermode surround sound available now in all good bookstores.
I know, which I've paid for.
Yes, I know you have, and you've made a big point of it, and I'm very grateful for your service.
I might continue to remind you of that.
Yeah, please do.
A little later on. When we stop talking about your book and other books available at academic book prices, what are you going to be reviewing?
This is a packed show. We have reviews of Spinal Tap II, The End Continues, which is the long-awaited sequel to Spinal Tap. We have Downton Abbey, the grand finale, which is... does what it says on the tin. We have The Long Walk, which is the latest Stephen King adaptation. Every single thing that Stephen King has written seems to be coming to the screen. And we have our very special guest,
who is going to be sitting in a studio very near you, in a seat very near you. And he is Warren Ellis, legendary musician. There is a documentary called Ellis Park, which is made by our recent guest, Justin Kurzel, famed Australian director. And Warren, I'm just guessing, he'll either be wearing a very loud kind of Hawaiian fruity shirt or he'll be wearing a brown suit. What do you think? What would you guess?
Most of the time he's wearing a brown suit with a very loud Hawaiian fruity shirt, open to the waist, and many danglements around his neck, including, of course, Nina Simone's gum.
So more about that when Warren turns up. What else are you going to be reviewing in other parts?
In Take Two, we have bonus reviews of Islands, about which you were speaking to Sam Riley on last week's show, and The Man in My Basement, which is a really, really strange and hard to describe psychological, sociological thriller.
Plus all the extra other goodness, the extra episodes. I mean, basically a whole life's worth of entertainment, should you become a subscriber, which would be a very lovely thing. Got an email here from, now I'm going to say John Keogh.
Okay.
And Esperanza Uribe. Now, I think these are genuine. I don't think that's like an in-joke that I've missed. But I think it's John V. Keogh and Esperanza Uribe who say, "My dear fellows, Simon is right to doubt the word parasitism," which you remember came up last week, "but it is a valid word in the OED and with uses in biology and medicine." He then provides a lot of unnecessary examples, like, nor was venality and parasitism less its characteristic. You see, that doesn't make sense. That's Ale Windsor, 1899. "Accepting the conditions of parasitism imposed by this time upon the poet and preacher." Westminster Gazette. I just don't think anyone is going to find much use for the word parasitism.
Yes.
Have you ever used the word?
No, only when it came up on last week's show and you read it out and you doubted its veracity.
No, I had actually looked it up, so I knew that it actually did exist.
Oh, okay, fine. No, but I can't imagine using it. I think you could use it as the sequel to Parasite, Bong Joon-ho's Parasitism.
Yes, and do you know what it is in French?
Go on.
Parasitisme. 1659, that the commanders of ships and pinnaces be from henceforth made choice of, rather than a vain pretence of estate, brackets bribery, parasitism, or lordly favour, and so on and so on and so on. So it's an utterly useless word, but it does actually exist in the worlds of...
does absolutely back up the theory that I was told when we were at the Doramar Film Festival in France, that French isn't a real language. It's just English spoken with a funny accent. And there's that, I always think of this with Eddie Izzard. He did a routine and then he said that was a scene from Speed, which in France should have been called La Vitesse, but was in fact called Speed.
Yes, I wouldn't repeat those ideas of the French language outside of the confines of your Sony studio. Biology and medicine are the funky places to be if you want to use the word parasitism. Any other uses? Okay. As ever, we would love to hear from you on this and any other subject. Correspondence@kermodemayo.com. Anyway, tell us about something that might be out.
Okay, so Downton Abbey, the grand finale,
yes,
which is the sequel to the one before, which I think was the New Era, third film of the franchise. Returning director Simon Curtis, written, of course, by Julian Fellows. Usual cast with Paul Giamatti and Dominic West reprising roles from the TV series in the previous film. I mean, look, if you're up to speed with Downton Abbey, you're up to speed. Here's a clip from the trailer.
It's hard to accept that it's time to go. Your friendship has never been more important to all of us. But the future of Downton Abbey is now in Mary's hands.
He will be a sensation.
Lady Mary must go now. She's divorced.
I'm very sorry. I shouldn't have come.
You get the general idea. So the outraged voice that you heard, that was Jolie Richardson as a woman who almost faints at the prospect of royals being in the same room as a divorcee. The film also gives us Alessandro Nivola as a clearly good-for-nothing Yank who's got romping scoundrel written all over him, and Simon Russell Beale as this harumphing Sir Hector Morland who out-pantomimes Toby Jones's first screen appearance in, you remember that, in Orlando? It's just all face-pulling. And if you ask me what it's about, I'd say it's about 2 hours, although honestly, to me, it felt longer. So the story is the family and the staff. It's the 1930s. Mary has become the centre of a scandal because she's been divorced. And then the household have got to deal with disgrace. There is a funny line in which she says, I'll try and find a taxi that will take a divorced woman. They've got financial trouble. They've got to embrace change, move out of... So it's bringing all the things together for the finale. Okay, so here's the thing, right? I've never been a big Downton Abbey devotee, although I've seen the movies and the movies do exactly what it says in the tin. Obviously, Dame Maggie Smith is not here, but the portrait of Dame Maggie Smith, which is in the main hallway of the building, hangs over the entire proceedings with her kind of looking down as if from above. You have... Noel Coward in this. He gains entry into the world of Downton because they're trying to rehabilitate a newly divorced woman, and they think the way to do that is to have a party that Noel Coward will come to. And at one point, Noel Coward, obviously not actually Noel Coward, sings a song, and when he was singing the song, it reminded me of that scene from The Meaning of Life in which Eric Idle's not Noel Coward does the song about the joys of having a penis. Which, you remember that song, which ends up with the line, but don't take it out in public or they'll put you in the dock and you won't come back. Thank you very much. 12A for mild bad language and sex references, and it all leads up to a kind of every single person gets their moment and their their farewell. Now, none of this is going to surprise anyone who's a Downton fan. Obviously, what you don't get from Julian Fellowes is acerbic, biting social satire, despite the fact that actually, of course, all of this started with Gosford Park, which actually was quite spiky. There's Simon Russell Beale being horrified at the prospect of being contradicted by servants is about as acerbic as it gets. There's an overworked joke about the teacher turned writer who wants to meet Noel Coward, and then he does this thing about, you have to understand the thing about in Hollywood, the actors only say what they're told to say by the screenwriters, and he sort of looks directly into camera and says the screenwriters are the real heroes of Hollywood, which is very much a kind of, a nudge, wink kind of joke. There's also a sort of fairly heavily delivered line about the past being a more comforting place than the present. I mean, here's the thing. It's not very good, but it doesn't need to be. What it needs to be is a reunion of the characters for the people who are devotees of Downton. And I think, an honest review of it would be, you've done it again, Julian. Yeah. Well done. One line of dialogue and it says Julian Fellowes. For me, the whole thing is completely forgettable, and absolutely that thing about goes down well with a cup of tea, missus, on a Wednesday afternoon. But the thing that we should remember about it is it will do very well, and it will do well in a lot of independent cinemas, like the Newlyn Filmhouse or like the Act One in Acton, in which they're reliant to some extent on the older cinema goer, on the grey pan, on the cup of tea and a bicky audience, and they will like it. So there's no point in criticising it. I don't get it. I never have really got it. I like Gosford Park, but that was a long time ago, and that was in a whole different world. I think if you're going to go and see Downton Abbey, the grand finale, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get, dinner parties, and you're going to get visits to the theatre, and you're going to get people being outraged by divorce, and you're going to get, the world's changing and we have to do this thing. So, yes, Julian, you have done it again. Just don't do it again.
Well, was the final countdown, is that what it's called?
The grand finale.
The grand finale.
Final countdown.
Well, I don't know. I thought it was something like that. So they can't really come back unless they're all wiped out. Does a spaceship come down at the end and whisk them away to another planet?
Well, that would be a plot spoiler, Simon, wouldn't it?
Oh, I see. I love the fact that you said they have financial troubles, which I do feel should be put in inverted commas.
There is a funny line when they go to visit a flat because they're looking at buying a flat, and Hugh Bonington hears somebody. Hugh Bonneville. What did I say? Hugh Bonington. Hugh Bonneville. That shows how Downton I am. Here's somebody walking in the floor above, and he says, "What's that?" And she says, "I don't know. It's probably the family above." He says, "The family above?"
Yeah. That's like the a weekend.
That's right,
that line.
yes.
But I think just hearing you talk about that, and you're absolutely right about the people who will go and see this and will enjoy it very much for what it is. When we were in the Harry Potter phase, and I mean the books here, when they were coming out, and a lot of people were saying, look at how big they are and they need a better editor and look how vast they are. I think they got it wrong because there were so many people who basically just enjoyed spending time with these people. That's it. Yeah. And that's what it sounds like with Gosford.
With Downton Abbey.
With Downton Abbey starring Hugh Bonington. Because we were on top of this. Is that people just like spending time with them. That's kind of it, really. Yeah. Well, correspondence at codenmayo.com if you want to review Gosford Park or any other aristocratic residence.
Starring Hugh Bonington.
Whatever it is. Anyway, correspondence at codenmayo.com. Mark, what are you doing next?
Coming up, reviews of Spinal Tap II, The End Continues, The Long Walk, and...
Yes, well, we've got the UK and US box office top 10, obviously. The Laughter Lift, which I've had to do some surgery on, plus our special guest, who is Warren Ellis, on the way. Okay, box office top 10, starting at number 20, Foe. Jamie has sent in this on Christie, which you talked about.
Oh, yes, which I loved.
This film really surprised me, says Jamie. It's a super restrained, quietly powerful piece of filmmaking, gorgeous to look at, beautifully cast, and the performances are all dialed in just right. It's got a bit of that Ken Loach vibe, but without the heavy-handed politics. More human, less agenda. If you're not used to the Cork accent, you might find yourself wishing for subtitles. Personally, I was fine, but I can see it being a barrier for some. And here's the kicker. Stay for the end.
Yeah, the ending is absolutely wonderful. I went in thinking that it was going to have a Ken Loach vibe, but actually it is very different because it's really joyous and uplifting. I'm not saying that Ken Loach films can't be that, but sometimes they aren't. This will put a spring in your step and a song in your heart, and absolutely stay for the end because it's so wonderful.
And it's not stay for the end like after the credits because
no.
Marvel thing, when it finishes, it finishes.
Yeah, it's just that there is a musical thing at the end that they do with the credits, which is just wonderful.
So we're in the box office top 10. At number 10, this is Jaws, 50th anniversary reissue. It's number 11 in America, but it's 10 here. And Dear Brother Louie and Brother Beyond, which is a reference, of course, to German pop synth duo Modern Talking. I know you knew that. I was just filling that in for everyone else.
No, well done.
From the moment John Williams' spine-tingling music started to the end when Brody and Hooper are seen heading back to shore, filled me with warmth, nostalgia, and even though I've seen it many times on the small screen, a fear and dread only Spielberg can seem to deliver. Everything was so enhanced. It looked and sounded better than the so-called multi-million-pound blockbusters we endure these days. There are so many moments of perfection with or without the shark which will never be surpassed. And Ben Gardner's head appearing from his boat still made me jump out of my chair. Thankfully, I was the only person in the screening. The whole 124-minute running time left the warmest of glows radiating my body, something we all miss in this current world of hate and fear, says Dean.
Incidentally, can I just say on the subject of Jaws very quickly, as we saw in that wonderful documentary about John Williams that came out last year, the story is true that apparently after Spielberg had all the problems with the shark and it wasn't working, he said, well, it's okay, John Williams will give me the shark with his music. And he sat down with John Williams and said, okay, what have you got? And John Williams went, dun-dun. And Spielberg went, yeah, no, but really, what have you got?
It's almost like you could write a book about this kind of thing.
I know.
Number 9 here, number 24 in the States. Honey, Don't.
Well, I as I said, it's a film whose title does the review. Absolutely don't. I see that we have an email. I'm waiting to hear what it says.
We have 3, actually. Thunder Werner says, Mark isn't always right. It's an enjoyable twist on the noir detective film, and Margaret Qualley does a great job channeling Humphrey Bogart. Chris Evans is slutty, and Aubrey Plaza is Aubrey Plaza. I enjoyed it so much, I went back and saw it again. I figured I end up seeing superhero movies at least twice. I will support smaller B movies when they actually are available to watch. So Honey, Don't, Caught Stealing, and Relay were this August's treat. And I would recommend any of them to people who just want to see a movie. Not an event, not a tent pole, not an extended universe, just a plain old movie. Barb in Exeter says, I really struggled to get past the Superbad slander in Mark's review of this last week. He's just been contrarian. He can't possibly think Superbad was anything other than great. And Cameron on our YouTube channel says, hang on, why is Superbad catching strays out there? Which is an interesting, maybe that's a phrase that the kids are using on YouTube, but I wasn't aware of that.
No, I mean, Superbad isn't catching strays. You can go back and find the review that I did when Superbad came out. I really didn't like it. I know loads of other people do, and I know it's one of the things that people disagree with me, but I'm not just saying it for effect. I didn't like it at all, and I said so when it came out. On the subject of supporting the indie movies, Caught Stealing, which came out last week, which is the Aronofsky, which is at number 5 in the chart, I still haven't caught up with this week because I've been a little bit busy, what with the book and everything. But I do think the idea of going to see Honey, Don't 3 times is, well, look, I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I'm glad that you got that out of it. I'm still depressed about the fact that there's a 3rd one coming, although, hey, maybe the 3rd one, which is called Go Beavers, will be hilariously funny. It won't, but maybe it will.
Are you saying that gratuitous self-promotion for financial gain is being put ahead of movies at the moment?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear about that. Number 8 here, number 7 in America, The Fantastic Four, First Steps.
which I enjoyed very much. As we've said every week that it's been in the charts, I think it looks great. I mean, narratively, it's a little bit messy, but just the design is so great, and I want all of that furniture.
UK number 7, Loka Chapter 1, Chandra.
So again, this came out the week that we were not doing the show, but also I don't think it was press screen, but I think we had an email about it last week. It's an Indian superhero adventure horror film, and it is apparently the first installment in a 5-part universe called Wayfarer Cinematic Universe.
Court Stealing is at number 6 here, 5 in America. Lois says, Court Stealing is pure chaos. Think After Hours meets John Wick, but make it 90s New York City and weirdly hilarious. Butler's Hank is a washed-up baseball guy who gets wrecked by drug dealers, Hasidic hitmen, yes, really, and his own bad luck. Matt Smith is unhinged, Zoe Kravitz is cool as hell, Carol Kane with a shotgun, iconic. Aronofsky hasn't been this fun in forever. Go see it, it's nuts.
And this is my treat to myself on Sunday, because that's what I'm doing, because I do the last theatre thing on Saturday, and then I'm going to go and see Court Stealing as a treat to myself.
Number 5 here, number 6 in America, Bad Guys 2.
Yeah, you remember Bad Guys 1? It's like that, but just more.
Freakier Friday is at number 4.
So much funnier than I thought it was going to be, and I actually ended up crying, which really caught me by surprise.
Number 3 in the UK and Canada, Weapons.
And this is turning out to be one of the surprises of the year, because so many people I know have gone to see Weapons and have really, really enjoyed it, been baffled by it, been fascinated by it. I'm really pleased that it's done as well as it has. There are so many ideas in it. Not all of them work, but the more I think about it, the more I see things in it. I do think it is a metaphor for the whole of contemporary American society, and I thought it was really something.
The Roses is at number 2.
Again, this is the last of the ones that was out the week that we were off, and I'm sorry I haven't caught up, but other things have taken place. Tell me about The Roses. Do we have any emails?
No.
No, well, there we go.
But it is number 8 in America. Number 1 here and number 1 in the States and Canada is The Conjuring Last Rites. Violent.
Okay, so hang on. Before you even begin the emails, let me just say, I know that there are going to be people complaining about the fact that it departs from the truth, but that's because the film spends so much time telling us that this is all true and that the Warrens were Latter-day Saints. On you go.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. Someone called Violent Outburst Studios.
Really?
I mean, in general, if that's on your email, could you just give yourself a name? Or even if you make up a name, that's fine. But what am I supposed to call you? Violent Outburst Studios.
Jeff.
I suppose I could call you Vio. So, okay, I'm going to call you that. Watcher Vio. Okay, Violent Outburst Studios say, this year has been good for horror. Weapons, Bring Her Back 28 years later, and so on. This film being released alongside them only goes to highlight everything that is wrong with mainstream horror films. The lovely Seamus says, the seriousness of these films ruins the fun.
Yes, exactly.
Whilst fueling these charlatans' fables from beyond the grave, regrettably exposing them to a far wider audience, many of whom I'm sure fully believe that these are true stories.
Yes.
Lee Doherty, possibly Doherty, depending on Lee's preference. The franchise lost steam when James Wan stepped down as director, so I'm not surprised that this latest and final chapter is as meh as the last one. The spin-offs weren't necessary either, so on the related subject of New Line Cinema horror, I hope that the planned prequel to Weapons falls through very quickly. Leave original work alone.
Okay, well look, I'm delighted by those emails because none of them said the thing that I expected them to, because what I did was I made the mistake of going below the line on the YouTube channel.
Again!
I know. I need to break the habit. I really need to break that.
How many times?
Never go below the line. And there was people getting off their bike about, well, he's just complaining that it's not true. But the thing is, lots of horror movies aren't true. Yes, but lots of horror movies don't spend an hour and 15 minutes going, and this is so true, and they were so important, and they really did do everything they could to help other people. No. As I said, the Warrens were at best kooks and at worst con men. And that's fine. And I'm happy to watch a movie in which, an Ooga Booga doll stalks the corridors of a house and a house explodes and all the rest of it. But just don't spend every other minute going, this is really important. As I said, my favourite line in the whole film was the thing which said, and remember, the Warrens were doing this stuff at a time that science didn't take them seriously. It's like, Yeah, because they're not to be taken seriously.
Think how much easier your life would be and how much more time you would have to promote your book if you didn't go below the line on anything.
Anything.
Newspapers, this show, YouTube, whatever.
Never go below the line.
But I know you will, and probably this afternoon. Correspondents at KermodeMayo.com, we have a top guest for you to meet in just a moment. This week's guest is Warren Ellis, musician, member of Dirty Three and Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Friend of the show, Justin Kurzel, has produced a documentary about Warren's work, part of which is about providing sanctuary to animals in Indonesia. You're going to hear all the details of our conversation with him after this clip from the movie.
It really dawned on me that in the Sumatra Wildlife Centre, there's this incredible sort of positive thing going on because it's really just an intermediary stage for these animals. The goal of the place is to liberate them, is to give them their freedom back. And then I looked at the cages differently here because the animals are moving through them. They're just passing through to get back to being released, back to where they should be. And I realised that's the kind of nerve centre of the whole place. That's the heart of the operation. The park is not a zoo. It's a last resort. It's actually trying to make good a fuck situation. They wish they could release Rena. They wish they could release the bears, but they can't.
That's a little clip from Ellis Park, a little bit of violin from Warren Ellis, who joins us and clears his throat. Warren, hello. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And as everyone, people watching on YouTube will know that you're dressed spectacularly. For those who are just listening to the pod, explain what you're wearing, sir.
Well, I believe, and I'm no authority on this, but I believe it's a 1980s one-day series cricket match tracksuit that Adidas rebooted recently in Australia. And it didn't sell very well. And I walked in and I was like, that has my name on it. Clearly, and I bought 3 of them. So people get used to it because it's going to be around for a couple of seasons.
And those boots look amazing.
These are a little. I think they're called Street Life or something. They're by Jeffrey West. I could still get into a winkle picker.
Okay.
Bunions.
So this documentary takes us to a number of different places. But first of all, tell us what Ellis Park is and how this film came to be made.
Okay, so Ellis Park is a sanctuary. It's a place for animals to die with dignity in Sumatra. And during the lockdown, I was introduced to Femke Haas, who is the kind of in the documentary. She's like the superhero. She's like the best of all of us, as far as I'm concerned. She decided about 15 years ago that she would dedicate her life to liberating animals who were kept in cages, like I mean primates, and I mean bears, and I mean crocodiles, and they've been sort of bought through the animal trade, and she decided to make it her mission in life to liberate them. She's like Jane Goodall with a mohawk or something, you know. And I was introduced to her, and at the time they were kind of like an English indie rock band who were just like traveling around in absolute squalor to get to the sort of next gig, you know, but with a heart as big as Farlap, who is an Australian racehorse who we all dearly love, the Farlap. Just for the people who don't know who Farlap is. And when I met her, they needed a place to house all these animals they kept gathering, who were beyond release, beyond, you know, to be released back into nature. And we concocted this idea to build Ellis Park. And I knew very little about this world, and I purchased the land and donated it to them, and then realised we had to build it, and that I had no clue about that at all. So that's when I decided to go public, because I couldn't sort of finance the construction of it. And this amazing thing happened where this sort of beautiful community of people around the music that I've done over the years, and the film people I've worked with, be it producers or actors and musicians that I knew, and the fans, they all just mucked in, and within 2 months we were able to build the first stage of it, which was the enclosures, and build a school and build a veterinary hospital. And then when I saw how it was evolving, I sort of bought some more allotments. So we have a garden now that feeds the animals, and we have a big place at the back that as a part of the hill behind it. So the place is protected by a river that runs around it, and safe from interference. So that's the park in a kind of nutshell, and it was something I was working on during the lockdown, and as well as that, I'd been making records and film scores when I could, and writing a book. And I was at Cannes presenting a film that I'd done the music for, The Snow Leopard. I think it's called The Velvet Queen, a beautiful documentary by Vincent Munier. And I bumped into Justin Kurzel, and I didn't really know Justin beyond meeting him at a few after shows after a concert. But I knew his brother, who composes the music for his films, and I was a fan of his work, and he was presenting Nitram. And we just had a coffee and a chat and all that, and I told him about the sanctuary, and he asked me what it was like. And I said, I don't know, I've never been there. And but I said, look, I have this idea, I want to go there, and I've sourced a place in Italy who will make a 3-metre tall copy of Nina Simone's Gum that I wrote the book about, and I was trying to get it put into the Statue of Liberty, and I was trying to get it like in the Louvre, and they all told me to so I thought, right, I'm going to build my own, I'm going to put it in Ellis Park, and you can all go yourself. And he said, and he's just looking at me, and I said, and I'm going to get a boat, and we're going to take it over, and I know there's a river, we're going to drag it up the hill and stick it up there. And he just said, I want to make that film. And Nick Batzius was there, who's a producer and had produced Nitram, and he just said, I want to produce that film. And I just thought it was a bunch of Australians sitting around, being kind of, funny and stuff like that. And he texted me afterwards and said, I'm serious, mate. And I didn't think any more of it. And then a month later, I got a treatment for it, which I didn't read. I just thought, wow. And then within 6 months, they were over there filming. So that was the sort of genesis. It was kind of, as is often the case, it came to life because there was something about that initial idea that captured the kind of imagination of the two of them. And as I've noticed, excuse me, in my work in music for the last 30 years, it doesn't really matter whether the idea kind of lives or dies, but you owe it to kind of give it every chance that you can to keep it afloat. And this idea of taking this piece of gum there, which didn't really even eventuate in the film, we changed tack, but it captured everyone's imagination enough to kind of get things up and running. And this is often the case that you're just chasing some crazy dream. And what can come out of that, it can be extraordinary.
So just to explain, because one of the things you referred to in that, you say Nina Simone's Gum, okay? And some people may not have read Nina Simone's Gum. I am sitting here wearing round my neck
Oh,
Nina
I'm
Simone's
so
gum.
happy about that, Mark. So am I.
Yeah, I know. So there's only 3 things I have around my neck, which is a St. Christopher that was given to me by my family, a clam that was given to me by my daughter, and Nina Simone's
clam?
gum. Yeah.
Oh, how beautiful.
Which you gave to me. And the story of Nina Simone's gum is that you had rescued this piece of chewing gum from underneath the piano when she played at Nick Cave's at the South Bank Meltdown.
At the Meltdown Festival.
And when you wrote the book about it, and then you then had these reproductions made, one of which I have and I treasure, you were writing about how artifacts can have an almost kind of magical thing to it because of what we invest in them.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a piece of gum, but it's so much more than that. And that's kind of this whole thing about this idea eventuating, as you said. It all comes from this crazy little seed of I've got a piece of Nina Simone's gum, and 30 years later, or whatever it is, it will turn into this other thing.
Yeah, well, it's quite amazing because I can trace it back, that moment of just instinctively jumping up on stage after the show had finished and grabbing it. I just wanted to have something that was a part of this show that changed my life. The concert was extraordinary, and I wanted to have something, and it had been in her mouth, and I didn't really think about it, and I kept it as a shrine in my studio, and it was wrapped up in the towel that she wiped her brow down with. And 20 years later, Nick asked me if I still had it because he wanted to put it in his exhibition in Denmark, in Copenhagen, and I still had it. And then this amazing thing happened that people rallied around this little piece of gum, and they'd send me photos of it being transported to the Black Diamond Library in Copenhagen. And you know, the gum is just a metaphor. Like, it's this really for I think the creative process and that creative imagination and communal imagination, which is a beautiful thing and gets things done. And I've noticed this in my life. I've never really understood the process, but seeing this sort of idea take flight was the first kind of concrete thing that I could sort of look at the images that were being sent to me, like the gum sitting, you know, like in the seat next to Molly and Rachel, you know, taking it up with my old violin, you know, that had been rediscovered. And Anne de Moulemiste, a fashion designer from Belgium, when I sent it to her, she just wrote back, "But this is like a hair of Christ." And, you know, people imbued it with this this kind of spiritual and, you know, religious-like fervor. And I found that incredibly beautiful, but I also found it to be something I could recognize from my whole working life as a musician and creating music. And I never could explain it, and it's always retrospectively that we can kind of understand things. I look back at the things that I've done, and it's a very different sort of idea I have about them than at the time, because I'm just running at the time. Like when I'm working on a score, I'm just trying to work out how to do it. I'm just like praying that something will happen. Yeah. But then it takes it's why history is really fascinating, because with distance you get a kind of clearer overview about maybe what was happening. So yeah, the writing the book was really interesting for me, because it just appeared in front of me as these photos and interactions were taking place, and it's really I think a book about ideas, and I'm in there a bit just to kind of give it some context of who I am and things like that. But it's really about I think about ideas and about faith, you know, having and at the time writing it, I didn't really know what it was about. And a few years later, I could have a better idea, I think, about it. I have a better understanding of what it
just to explain to people who haven't seen the film, because the film basically starts with the Nina Simone's gum section of your life, and we see you in the recording studio, we see you talking about the gum, and then you do actually take a version of the gum to Ellis Park. There's actually a moment almost half the way through the documentary in which you say, oh yes, and we're going to the park. The documentary is called Ellis Park, and you're halfway through before you go, oh yes, we're also going to do that. And I think one of the things that Justin Kurzel has done rather brilliantly is to meld together this whole thing of the journey of your life up to that point, and then this manifestation of it, which is Ellis Park. So on the one hand, yes, it is a documentary about Ellis Park, but it is equally a documentary about you and your creative process. And I mean, I thought that worked really well. Sorry, Simon, I recognise that I'm kind of dominating this.
I think I'm dominating this, actually, Mark.
Warren, I just had one question based on having watched the movie yesterday. There's lots of your music, obviously, throughout the film, throughout Ellis Park, and looking at you playing your violin in all those different places where Justin made you or suggested that you play your violin. It seems to me that you're in a trance. And there's one particular moment when you're in the studio in Paris and you're at the piano and you're playing this kind of repeated theme and your eyes are closed. And to all intents and purposes, you're gone somewhere. Would that be correct, or is that a non-musician talking?
No, I think that's correct. I mean, music for me was always a place of escape, like the cinema was, and like listening to music was. It was a way of escaping the real world, which I never really found easy to navigate. It always seemed complex and somehow aggressive, and a lot of that was the way I was seeing things and the place I was projecting from. But I couldn't change that. And music, I realised had been this. It was like, going to the gym and staying in shape. Music provided this place that I could mentally go to where the noise stopped and I could just lose myself. It's the greatest honour for me that I get up to perform with Nick and the Bad Seeds and the Dirty Three and in front of people, in front of an audience, that I get to be a part of this thing that is so otherworldly. And I just consider it the greatest honour to 30 years later still be getting out there and doing this. It's like the greatest job on the planet. And music was always like that for me, and continues to be. There's a thing when I go in there that if I can't shut life out of the studio, then I'm in trouble, and that's happened to me several times. And the kind of the result of that is that I fall down a rabbit hole, and this one was the biggest I'd fallen down. And when this happens, I'm unable to play, and I have to kind of. I think a lot of people that I've spoken to when I do Q&As afterwards relate to this in their own way. It's like we get to a point where we need a reset or something. We need to kind of get taken out of the race for a while. And music was always that thing for me that kind of kept the world at bay.
Well, my take on it,
like I don't understand what goes on. I've been doing it for 30 years. I just know that it's the search, that the next project that defines me, and that's the thing that I want to be the best thing that I've ever done. I'm not interested in repeating things that have worked. I have a limited set of tools, and I try to find a different way into the process if I can. That's the objective for me, and to feel uncomfortable. Making the film was the most uncomfortable I've ever felt in my life. Signing off on it was like so hard, and caused a lot of heartbreak amongst some members of my family. But I decided to go with to go with how I've approached work, which is, if I'm feeling nervous, I'm in a good spot. If I'm feeling comfortable, I'm not in a good spot, because anybody that's going to listen to it is just going to feel pretty bland about it. So I've always I've always sort of liked the challenge of feeling uncomfortable, but this was beyond uncomfortable. This was, when you see yourself up there, you see what you're doing. I couldn't really tell, and I sent the cut to a bunch of people who I knew cared about me, and I knew that they would tell me what they thought about it honestly. And that was Nick, Andrew, my girlfriend Kristen, and the two guys in the Dirty Three, and got their kind of overview on it, which was incredibly helpful for me to decide how to move forward with it.
I found it the most captivating and profound film I've seen for a long time. So, Warren, thank you very much.
I'm really happy to hear that. For me, it was incredibly kind of moving to see, I guess, how they saw what was going on, if that makes sense. When you're involved in something, you can't really get a global look on it. And I was eventually very moved seeing how they'd sort of tied things together and what they thought the ramifications of things were.
Well, I'm going to review the film when it comes out in 2 weeks' time. I'll give you a preview. Simon is not alone in his opinion. So, Warren, thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. The film's been amazing because it's been a way for people to see what's going on there, to see that it's real, and that you can actually really do something to improve things in a little corner of the earth, and that's a kind of great tonic in these times, I find.
Fantastic.
Great. Thank you, Warren. That's brilliant.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Warren.
Thank you.
And you can hear the rest of our conversation with Warren in take 2. Okay, so please get in touch with on the subject of Warren Ellis or anything else, really, because we love to hear your views. Correspondence@kermodemayo.com. I have seen lots of posters for The Long Walk, and every time I walk past it, I think that as we've said many times on this show, there probably is no writer other than Stephen King which has dominated.
I know.
Correspondence and public conversation about all kinds of attitudes and ideas and books and movies. There's no one like Stephen King who's dominated, and here he goes all over again. Yeah,
so a couple of weeks ago we had Life of Chuck, for which you did that absolutely wonderful interview, and I loved that. And that was an uplifting Stephen King from the Stephen King of Stand By Me.
Yes.
Now we have this, which is adapted by writer J.T. Molnar from a pseudonymous novel from 1979. This was a Richard Bachman novel, and this is very much from the Mist school of Stephen King. So,
right.
Yes.
Great.
So the novel was apparently written when King was a freshman. So he actually wrote it, or at least he started writing it years before Carrie came out, which was the thing that, his first one put him on the map. And I looked up the cover of the novel, which had this kind of rollerball style tagline, which said, "In a future America, the marathon is the ultimate sports competition, a novel of chilling, macabre possibility." And the poster for the film is actually very similar to the thing that on the web, which appears to be the cover of the original book, which is the shot through the legs of these people walking, and obviously a sort of authority figure. So this is a dystopian world in which there is a brutal game in which there can be only one survivor. So no surprise, perhaps, that Francis Lawrence of Hunger Games fame, although it had actually previously been earmarked for people like George Romero, and I think actually at one point Frank Darabont, has brought this to the screen. So the setup is that every year a group of, inverted commas, volunteers are chosen for the Long Walk. They come from various areas and walks of life. They're young men. They're all volunteers theoretically, but as we learn, no one says no. And the challenge is, what they have to do is they have to keep walking for as long as possible. And if they stop or if they stumble, they get a warning. And if they get a couple of warnings, they get shot. It's very grim. Here is a clip.
Warning, number 7.
All right, Kurzel.
Okay.
Just keep it slow, just fast enough and steady, okay? All right? Come on, put your weight on. Put your weight on.
Got it, boy. Around, keep it moving.
You're gonna keep walking. Listen to the feet, okay? We'll keep walking. You're with us. You're with us.
Come on, keep walking. Keep walking. That's right. That's right. We out here in the sunshine, just having fun.
Gonna be all right, okay?
She's loosening now.
Okay, good. Okay, good. All right. See this? You gotta promise me that you're gonna keep walking. You promise? All right?
Okay.
All right, you okay, right? You're all right. Come on. Come on, stick with me.
So they can't stop. If they do, they get shot in the head by the troops. The prize for the person who walks the longest is a huge amount of money and one wish. And the story initially focuses on Cooper Hoffman's character, who, of course, he was great in Licorice Pizza, who is Ray Garrity, who we see arriving with his mum, Judy Greer, who is weeping that he's going to go off on this thing because everyone knows that everyone except for one person who leaves is going to die. He soon pals up with Peter, played by David Johnson, who's a British actor who was a BAFTA Rising Star. Other key characters include Stebbins, Ben Wang's Hank, and then Charlie Plummer's very much disliked Gary Barkovich. And you see these people forming relationships and tensions as they walk, and the more they walk, the tighter they get, and every now and then somebody stumbles and falls and gets killed. So the drama, as you can expect from that, is pretty grueling. Like the Hunger Games, or more recently, like Squid Games, we learn about characters during the games only to see them violently dispatched. And each one has their own story, where they're from, how they got here, what they would do if they win, which of course only one of them can. And centrally, any friendships that are formed during the walk are going to end in horror because only one person is going to survive. There's also this unrecognisably horrible character, the Major, who is Mark Hamill. And I have to say, I was watching the film for a little while before I realised it was Mark Hamill, who keeps them moving with sort of vile sloganeering. And he becomes the symbol of everything that's wrong with the society. So the central dynamic, as with the Hunger Games movies and all the rest of those kind of YA franchise movies, are that any of these friendships are doomed. And so you start thinking early on, okay, who is going to survive and what sacrifices are going to be made? Because in the end, these things always end up being about sacrifice. So the film is well made. It is grueling. It's a 15 certificate for strong violence, injury, detail and language, although I think it's a top end 15 because I thought it was pretty brutal. At times, it's a slog. I mean, watching people walk, talk and get shot can be pretty depressing viewing. What makes it work, I think, is that, like all the best dystopian sci-fi, it does seem to resonate with the actual modern world. I mean, there's a scene in it in which a group of people start singing "God Bless America," and it put me in mind of the end of The Deer Hunter when they sing that song. And there's been such a lot of debate about whether they're singing the song at the end of The Deer Hunter ironically, which of course Cimino said, of course they're not doing it ironically. He actually means all that nonsense. But there is something about hearing that ironically ringing out over this, this road full of dead young bodies. The walkers are a diverse group. They're racially diverse. They seem to be a cross-section of modern US society. And watching it, I have to say, does feel horribly relevant. I mean, it's a depiction of a country which has fallen to a foul authoritarian rule in which people are constantly distracted by the real problems of economic collapse and social injustice by these brutal gladiatorial games in which they are told, hey, look, one of you can win untold riches, but everyone else will have to die in the process. And I find it horrible to say, and I was saying this in relation to weapons, in Trump's America, this drama does ring true. I mean, I think it might be too depressing for many audiences because it is, as I said, the story is keep walking until you stop and then get shot. And that is tough meat. But it works because there is a thing in there which is an allegory of society. Now, obviously, the story, as I said, was based way, way back in a previous era, in a previous century. And it shows something about if dystopian fiction is done properly, it keeps its relevance. I just think there is something really odd about watching this story now, in which I think America is in such a despoiled state that you can't help but watch it and think, yeah, okay.
For the latest State of the Union, I don't know if you ever listened to Ezra Klein at the New York Times, but he's done like a 20-minute monologue, which is kind of backs you up on most of what you were saying. Okay, so I don't think I want to see it really. If it's a
tough watch. You know how you felt about well, yeah, you know how I felt about The End of the Mist, but The Road. You remember how you felt about The Road?
Yes, I do.
There's a similar kind of lack of upbeat joy.
The long walk along the road.
The long walk along the road to the mist, through the mist.
Oh my goodness me! Interesting email from Jai, who says, "I don't know if you've all seen similar posts on social media, but it sounds fantastic, although not code compliant." And it's I don't know which social media it is, but it's Stephen King. I think it's Stephen King. It might be a different account.
It's the list of his top 10 films.
No. It says Lionsgate is holding a screening of The Long Walk where you need to walk on a treadmill faster than 3 miles an hour for the whole movie. If you stop, you'll be escorted out of the theatre and you can't watch the rest of the film.
No.
Yep. There's a little promo thing that I'm showing.
Wow.
I mean, it's not about, as a one-off. And
say that seems in rather poor taste, but you know. Because the killings they are brutal. I mean, look, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just old and sensitive. Like I said, it's only a 15 certificate, but I thought it was pretty intense.
Yeah, we've checked with Lionsgate. It is true. So, I think could I walk for 3 miles an hour for the duration of a film? I probably could. 3, but
you could.
5, 6. I'm not sure.
You do the treadmill. Yeah, I have conversations with you when you're on the treadmill.
Anyway, you know what we need, Mark, after so much misery?
Happiness, the greatest gift that we possess.
Yeah. So let's just press the button and see what happens.
Oh, dear.
Readjust face. Mark, hey, hi.
Yes.
I was thinking about dear old Grandpa Mayo this morning. For the purposes of this joke, he was a successful livestock farmer. Okay. I remember asking him how he became such a successful farmer. He said, it all began when I started keeping a tally of each of my cows and writing them down in alphabetical order. That was the catalyst.
Okay.
This one from Dad Says Jokes. I notice, I don't know if you've had a similar experience. I mean, I've changed it a little bit. But the good lady ceramicist, her outdoors at the moment, yelled when she was upstairs. And she shouted, do you ever get a shooting pain across your body like someone's got a voodoo doll of you and they're stabbing it? And I said, no. She said, how about now? Pretty good. And just after she'd finished that particular violent episode.
Yes.
Now, can I ask you, do you know what a Möbius strip is? It's a surface that can be formed by attaching the ends of a strip of paper together with a half twist. So
you don't know? Yes, I do know what it is. Yeah. I do know what it is. Yeah.
Anyway, a Möbius strip walked into a bar, crying its eyes out. What's wrong, my friend? Says the barman. Where do I even begin? Said the Möbius strip.
Hey!
But if you have to explain what a Möbius strip is, it's kind of
yeah. What you call the thing? That's if it heats up, it bends away, and therefore it breaks an electronic connection.
Is that a thermostat?
No, not a thermostat. It's the thing. It's like it's 2 strips of metal, one of which expands more than the other one, and if it heats, it bends, and then it cuts it. Never mind. Somebody will not. I'm looking to the control room, and they're not even listening. They're literally not listening. No, they don't care. They don't know. They don't know, and they don't care. And you know why, Jeremy? Because you're an actor. You're not really an engineer. You're an actor.
And Jeremy, who is part of the team here, very successful actor.
Very successful actor.
Who's been getting his kit off quite a lot recently, so I hear. Yeah. I don't know if we want to review that film when it comes out. Anyway, the music's finished. What are you going to do for the next bit?
Spinal Tap II, The End Continues.
Can I just say, Mark, before we continue, that some people will know this already because they're watching it on YouTube, but everything we do is on YouTube now, and it started this week. And so people can see your green jacket, which isn't a green jacket, it's the
Barracuda G9.
And they can see my very nice blue Oliver Spencer shirt. However, this is not just a one-off because this is a whole new way to enjoy all the gorgeousness that you can get from us.
So the whole show is going to be on YouTube, not just the reviews.
Yeah, how about that?
Well, if you want to spend an hour watching 2 old blokes talking down the line to each other, then be my guest.
And if you want to send us new items of clothing, then we'll probably wear them.
Exactly.
For a small fee.
Barracuda, are you listening?
Jonathan,
Petrol Blue, Size 50, thank you.
Jonathan Smith, Geography O-Level, Grade B. Dear Kylie's sister and an aid to navigation at sea. I can't have been the only Wittertainee who suffered a sudden outbreak of Wittertainee correspondence-related lachrymosity syndrome on hearing Willow's letter. This was last week when she was explaining the issues that she's had, and she was talking about her boyfriend Paul and how she hoped to make their wedding in the near future.
Yeah.
Anyway, on hearing Willow's letter, especially her response to Paul in last week's show, in keeping with the show's ethos of it'll be all right in the end, I would just like to say one thing to Willow. Indeed, if you could get the esteemed Mr. Hanks to say the following, I would be most grateful, if he is not too busy twisting the Tango Mussolini's small tail. What I would like Tom Hanks to say is, when you make it to your wedding, not if.
Yes.
Okay. So next time we have Mr. Hanks on the show, I will ask him to say that. Willow, says Jonathan, seemed to be in some doubt whether she would make it to their wedding. I think I speak for all Wittertainees when I say that I believe her turning up a few minutes late, looking radiant and saying, I do, is as likely as Michael Flatley winning the Best Actor award at the Monaco Streaming Film Festival. And if you've just arrived, that means that's something that will definitely happen. Surely, just in case people are going, what?
So no, because it actually sounds like that's something that's very unlikely,
yes.
But the fact is there was never any competition.
Yes. So so what Jonathan's saying is there's no doubt this is
There's no doubt. It did sound like he was saying the opposite, but no, he was saying that exactly.
It's
well
a bit
done.
like, do you know what a Möbius strip is? Well, I've just explained this. Surely like Tinkerbell in a panto, with the combined power of the Wittertainment fandom, only good can happen. Up with what's in front of you and down with what's behind you, says Jonathan. Thank you very much indeed. We'll pass that on to Willow and Paul, and I hope they're suitably encouraged. And if Mr. Hanks comes on the show again, we'll do that. Anyway, Spinal Tap, The End continues. It's a funny poster. It's a funny title. Does the film live up to it? Here we go.
Well, so this is the long-awaited sequel to the 1984 mockumentary documenting a British rock band falling apart in America. The first film was directed by Rob Reiner, who made it so convincingly that it is true that some people, but when Spinal Tap came out, before people really knew what Spinal Tap was, some people did think it was real. I know people poo-poo this story in the same way as they poo-poo the idea that people took Blair Witch seriously, but they did. There were some people who thought it was a real thing. So the band, which is Mike McKean, Christopher Guest, Harry Shearer, first appeared on a 1979 sketch comedy pilot, the TV show. Also, if you're a Spinal Tap fan and you've got the DVD, you'll know that there is an hour of outtake material. There's a whole other hour of Spinal Tap stuff with stuff about the support band, which is on that original film. And then after the movie became a cult hit and people started to embrace it, Spinal Tap went on performing together. They played at festivals like Glastonbury and Wembley. And in fact, footage from those festivals is in this sequel. They made a follow-up album, Break Like the Wind, which is actually very funny. And then later Back from the Dead in 2009. And the central team involved in it went on to make things like Waiting for Guffman, Best in Show, and A Mighty Wind, which is the sort of folk answer to Spinal Tap, which is absolutely wonderful. And then more recently, if you Google, there's a very, very funny skit which is Spinal Tap on jazz and why jazz is bad. And I think that's from about 10-something years ago. And it's really, really funny. So apparently the core team were embroiled in a rights dispute with the film about who owned the rights, who owned the profits. It got resolved in 2020 after years of litigation, and all rights now, including characters, trademark, licensing, are now owned by a wholly owned Spinal Tap LLC, which is basically the people who made the original thing. So now, all these decades after the original, we have the sequel, which reunites the core team. So once again, Rob Reiner in the driving seat. He is Marty DeBurgi, who, of course, Marty DeBurgi is based on Martin Scorsese in The Last Waltz. He's following up on the band who split up after an undisclosed row. We don't know what the row was about, but who it turns out are contractually obliged to do a reunion gig. So we catch up with the members. Nigel Tufnell is running a cheese and guitar store. There we go. David St. Hubbins has become an award-winning composer of on-hold telephone music.
Very good.
And Derek Smalls is running the Museum of Glue. So they are reunited in New Orleans by former manager Ian Faith's daughter, Alice kind of Sharon Osbourne, taking it from her dad, who inherited their contract and who ropes in Chris Addison's tone-deaf promo guy to help. Here is a clip.
I think we can all agree it was an outrage that you were not inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that you were refused entry.
I think it was the letter that upset me, which just said, fuck off.
Yeah. Yes.
You could say no, not yet.
Yeah.
Or something.
It said, fuck off, sincerely yours.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Brace yourself.
We present the International House of Rock.
I'll be.
This is like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, only better because it will have you in it.
Yeah.
We're going to build precisely this structure, and in it, we're going to memorialise tap. Rock in general, but tap specifically.
So if you're a tap fanatic, you know there's callbacks to a series of jokes there. There's the thing about the model being the literal size. There's the thing about I love your music, not Spinal Tap specifically, but the whole rock genre. So there's a lot going in there which is playing to the Spinal Tap fans, which is absolutely who the movie is for. So essentially, they're reunited for the first time in over a decade. They have to prepare the show. Old interpersonal rivalries and, more importantly, age-old affections resurface. Obviously, also, they have to find a new drummer because all their drummers, as you know, if you're a Tap fan, have all passed away in bizarre gardening accidents or through spontaneous combustion. There are cameos from characters who were previously central. I mean, I'll let people find out for themselves because it's quite nice not knowing who is actually going to reappear. There are also, more problematically, celebrity cameos. So Paul McCartney, who's quite funny. Elton John, not quite so funny. Garth Brooks, Questlove, Lars Ulrich, Chad Smith. So here are the key questions for any Spinal Tap fan. I got a message from my friend Duncan in Sweden who said, I'm just terrified. I'm terrified that it's going to be total toilet because that's what happens when you get a sequel to something you love. So is it awful? No. I'm sorry, I'm going to do the thing that you hate, Simon. I'm going to interview myself. Okay. Is it awful? No. If you're a Tap fan, you're going to find plenty of bittersweet nostalgia. And as we were saying about Downton Abbey, it's nice just to be back in the company of these people, particularly when they've aged, particularly now they've got, bad knees and grey hair. It's just nice to be with them again. Is it funny? I laughed out loud twice. I tittered quite a lot. And I grinned through a lot of it. I chuckled. I did a lot of chuckling. I didn't do a lot of guffawing. I did a lot of chuckling. Is it as good as the first film? Not by a country mile. I mean, it is worth saying that the first film took a few years to embed for people to understand how funny it was. I mean, I remember seeing it at the Arbor in Hume and I laughed my head off. And I went with a friend who hated it and just did not understand why I thought it was funny and thought I was an idiot. And then over the years, it's through repetition that Tap has become as funny as it has. The biggest thing is, do the celebrity cameos help it or hinder it? And I can't help but think that it's the latter. See, the problem is if you have a bunch of recognisable people who are in on the joke, to me, that deflates the joke somewhat. I mean, I understand why if you're Elton John, you want to be involved. I understand why Paul McCartney is quite funny, but then Paul McCartney is quite funny. He's the Beatles, The Beatles were always quite funny. And Elton John's a lot of things, but he's not a natural comedian. We've seen him in a few performances in films like one of those, the Kingsman movie or whatever it was.
That was terrible.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Well, it's not that. Okay. It's not that, but it's just not great. The main thing is the first film really looked like a documentary. This looks like a staged comedy. I mean, yes, a lot of it is improvised rather than scripted, and they are brilliant at doing it because they've been doing it for years. It still feels constructed. Could it have been worse? Absolutely. I mean, if you look at, I love The Ruttles. The Ruttles was a brilliant, a mockumentary. And then look at the Ruttles sequel, Can't Buy Me Lunch. It's terrible. I mean, it's, the original Ruttles is up there with Spinal Tap. The Ruttles sequel is absolutely awful. I mean, I think it was made by Eric Idle without the involvement of the other Ruttles. And it's really right down there in the pit of awfulness. So the final verdict, from me anyway, is it's nothing like as bad as it might have been, and it's nothing like as good as I wanted it to be. I don't think that, like the original, it is going to age like a fine wine and become funnier and funnier. I love Spinal Tap, and I love the way in which they've created those characters. And I wish the movie had been better than it had. But because I'm a Tap devotee in the same way that Downton devotees may think the same about the grand finale, I just like being around them for 82 minutes. But it is a footnote. It's not in the same ballpark as Spinal Tap at all. And if you're not a Spinal Tap fan, don't bother, because it's not for you. It's for me, and I thought it was okay. Could have been worse.
Okay, that's tinged with sort of.
I'm sorry.
Warmth, but tinged with disappointment. No.
Yes.
I get that. I remember I was at Radio Nottingham when it came out, and there was an esteemed old producer called Tony Church who had just been to see Spinal Tap, and he did the arts program. I think it was out on a Sunday afternoon or something. And I was choosing some music for a different program, and he was chortling whilst choosing music for his art show. And I said, "Why are you chortling?" And then he explained what he'd been to see. And he said for the first half hour, he wasn't sure what it was because, he had never heard of them and thought it was. And then as it went through, he realized what he was watching, but he was still laughing, a couple of days afterwards.
Yeah.
But that's the way, it just crept up on him.
Yes.
Which is probably the best way to have seen it. Everyone is jostling now for position. This has been a Sony Music Entertainment production. Here they come. Jen, Eric, Josh and Heather, this week's team. The producer was Jem, with his clothes on this week, which is a reassurance. The redactor was Simon Paul, who also is clothed. If you're not following the pod already, please do so wherever you get your podcast. Mark, what is your film of the week?
Well, I would have loved it to have been Spinal Tap 2. I just looked up interpretations of the original Stephen King Bachman novel of The Long Walk, and apparently it was originally interpreted as being about the Vietnam War. Donald Trump recently tweeted an image of himself as a heroic or anti-heroic character in Apocalypse Now, and he tweeted that about Chicago. He's apparently declaring war on an American city. So Donald Trump imagining himself in the Vietnam War, which he avoided because of bone spurs. It's funny. It does have more relevance now than it did before. Film of the week, and it's not a happy one, The Long Walk.
We would love your correspondence, as ever, please. Correspondence@kermodeandmayo.com. Thank you very much indeed for listening. Take 2 has landed for the Vanguard Easter. We'll talk to you very soon.